Hi, and welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, co-hosted by Abby Thiering, the Badass Breastfeeder, and Dianne Cassidy, IBCLC.
Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. I'm Dianne Cassidy, lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder.
And this week, week 6, we are going to talk about milk supply and milk supply issues or milk supply not issues, however you want to look at it.
The milk supply issues that you think you have.
There you go. That's how
that you probably don't have.
I'm always worried about saying to a mom who calls me freaking out about milk supply, be like, well, a lot of them are perceived. Like, you don't want to tell them you're crazy.
No, of course
because
not.
it's not. They're not. There's something happening there that's absolutely looking like there's a milk supply issue.
Yeah.
But more often than not, there really is not a milk supply issue.
Right. And I when I had my first, my labor was induced, and he was not ready. I mean, he was like, I was not dilated. I was not effaced. There was nothing. There was like no indication that he was anywhere near ready to be born. And I was induced because I was 41 weeks. I bet you he could have gone another week or two.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had him, and then, I was like, they're like, you don't have any milk. You don't have any milk, so you have to give him formula. And so that's the kind of a situation that I've always kind of wondered because I was induced. And so maybe I really wasn't making what I needed to make yet because he wasn't ready. What do you say about that, lactation consultants?
I say that they're filling your mind with very, very, very disempowering and bad information.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how it happens, it's really so cool how our bodies work that, well, I'm not making colostrum right now, but everybody who's pregnant in the listening world, like, you're making colostrum and, your body is generating this colostrum. Some women leak a little bit, some women don't. It has no correlation to anything. But that colostrum is there. And then, you have your baby, but your milk does not start production, like your actual milk. Your colostrum is there, but the milk does not start production until the placenta leaves the body. Like, the minute the placenta leaves the body, hormones shift, out goes, the placenta, in comes a prolactin, down goes the progesterone, and it just all starts. That's what triggers it. So you're not supposed to have that milk yet. But if your baby's born and the placenta's gone, whether they're, early, late, whatever, that's when things are going to kick in. But the colostrum is there for, a good couple of days. But babies don't need more than that for those first couple of days. And that's where the bad information comes in. If your baby was meant to have milk on day 1, you would have milk on day 1 to give to that baby. Right. But they don't need that on the first day of life or the second day of life. So it's not there. And usually milk starts to come in, day 3, day 4, for some women a little longer, depending on the situation, but your baby doesn't need anything but that. And somehow in our society, we have grown accustomed to thinking that these babies need something more in the first 2 days of life. And they really don't.
Yeah, I think we've also grown accustomed to just like, for some reason, we can be pregnant, grow this baby without really any, were you like worried about your pregnancy? I mean, like as somebody who worries a lot, I wasn't even that worried about it. I didn't really, you read kind of what's going on. Oh, the week 33, you can read like in, some book about what's going on. Like, our baby just grows. Nobody's like, oh my God, my baby, I can't grow my baby. Like, you just have a baby. You just grow the baby. And then as soon as the baby's born, we have no confidence that our body is going to do anything.
Right.
It's like for some reason we can get through pregnancy. And then when it comes to breastfeeding, maybe it's because it's boobs. But we're just like, oh, well, obviously my boobs are not working properly.
And people just assume that's going to happen.
With so many people.
And they really do just assume it. Like, and sometimes they'll say to me, so often, I would like to breastfeed if it works. If it works. I mean, it's worked our whole, I mean, just for millions of years it's worked. So why all of a sudden is it not going to work? But somebody is putting this in her, even when, when I was pregnant, oh, well, if it works for you, or, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, or what if you're not making enough milk? And people plant that seed all the time. And then you think, well, what if I'm not making enough milk? And what if this is really happening? And, I mean, I've had moms call me and be like, oh, yesterday everything was fine. Today I have nothing. Overnight it's gone.
Yes.
Like,
yes. No. And I think people also make this judgment based on these things like pumping, like I'm not pumping very much. Pumping is a terrible indicator of how much milk you have. I mean, I could never pump anything more than like half an ounce.
It's
and,
terrible.
I was like, oh my God, I mean, like I finally learned I just was like, I can't pump very much. I just don't respond to a pump.
Yeah. And a lot of women don't. And they they think they do, or they compare to the woman that they're talking to on Facebook that says, oh, I pumped 15 ounces in the last 2 times I've pumped.
Yes, and I've donated 1 million ounces of milk to the NICU. Like, thank God for those women. That's awesome. But like, that's not normal. That's not normal.
It's not, and it's very individualized. Very, very individualized. Mm-hmm. And people ask me questions like, how much should I be pumping? How much should I get? What should I get? That's like saying, how much should my baby weigh when it's born? How much do you think my baby should weigh? You know, it's so individualized. Everything just is very dependent on who you are. But we can't gauge. The only time I look at the pumping is if a mom says to me, I think I have a milk supply issue. I'm pumping, I'm feeding, baby's fussy, I don't think they're getting enough, and then they'll just take a bottle right afterwards, which they will, by the way. People think they won't do that, but they really will. And I'll say to that mom, okay, how much are you pumping? I'm only getting an ounce out of each breast. Like, that is not a milk supply issue. My women that have actual milk supply issues are pumping drops, if that.
Oh, drops. Yeah, right.
I am not, seeing that. That's the only time I gauge anything by pumping. I have had moms call me and say, my pediatrician suggested that I just pump to see how much the baby's getting. I'm like, that tells us nothing. That tells us absolutely nothing. And it's the worst information you could get.
Yeah. Isn't the best way to see how much your baby drank is to like put them on one of those special scales, feed the baby, put them back on the scale?
It is pretty fun to do that.
And you can see. Yeah. And it's like, wow. And it's it's always more. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe that all that was in my boob. It is.
It is.
All that milk is in your boob. Even though. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of the things that I think is kind of, would really alters how moms think about it is, you get that milk comes in, you're pregnant and you're just kind of getting bigger, your breasts are tender, you have this baby, the milk comes in and you feel huge. Like, you just feel full. You look like you have a different body. I was like this tiny little thing. I had just come out of the Army when I had my first son. I, was running a ton and I was tiny. And I remember looking at myself, and he was a July baby. And all I had was like little tank tops and stuff like that from the summers previous. Mm-hmm. And I remember even like being invited to a family birthday party or something and saying, I look obscene. I cannot leave the house. Like, I look like I belong on a pole somewhere. This is crazy. I cannot go out. And you get this full, like this huge, you feel huge, you feel full. Sometimes they're hard as a rock, depending on whatever's going on. But then your body adjusts like within a few days. Right. And those moms call me and go, oh my gosh, my breasts are soft. Does that mean my milk's gone?
Yep, they just assume. Yep, see, there couldn't possibly be anything in here. Look how saggy it is.
Right, they just feel so soft. There couldn't be anything. It's
just a normal breast now. It's that's normal.
You're not supposed to feel like huge and hard as a rock for a year. Like, who would do that?
Yeah, right.
Nobody wants to walk around like a big milk machine for a year. Like, it's
your body knows how to make enough milk for your baby and nothing else.
Right. It's like everything adjusts. Your body adapts to everything. It doesn't mean anything's gone. It's all good. Milk supply issues are not as common as people think they are.
And the other is like, my baby is really fussy on my breast, so he's not getting any milk.
Yeah.
Well, your baby is fussy all the time. and for like a million different reasons.
Oh my gosh, so many. So many different reasons. I'm like, there's been times I've actually said to people, once I ask a few questions and kind of get an idea of what's going on behind that, because of course they call me and say the baby's fussy at the breast, so they must not be getting, nothing's coming out. They're mad. First of all,
right? They're mad because there's no milk. They know there's no milk. They're yelling at my breast.
Right. Your baby's not putting that together. They're really not.
Right.
They're not putting that together yet, and that's not happening. I've actually said, I don't think your baby's hungry, or I don't think your baby is like ready to eat yet. Because that just, those things can happen, and your baby can kind of like, especially when they get to that age where they know when they want to eat and they know when they don't want to eat, and they will not go on if they don't want to eat, and they will cry and fuss, and it has nothing to do with how much milk is in the breast. It has everything to do with what they want to do at that moment. Again, not a feeding issue.
Maybe they're cold, or it's too bright, or they're uncomfortable, or, you're holding them when their arm is like bent back the wrong way. Or,
there's a gas bubble. Like there's something.
Yeah.
Their arms bent back. Oh my gosh.
Like even the way that we hold babies, like, very few people actually like lean back and let the baby kind of like come to the breast.
Right.
Like we're all sitting up with the baby's like right or left arm is like jammed underneath their body, and like, it's not comfortable for them.
It's not. And they will, they're little people just like we are. And you need to kind of remember that this is the only way they can communicate with you. Their only means of communication is to cry and to squawk.
Yeah.
So doesn't always mean that it's a milk supply issue, because that's the first thing we go to. There's something terribly wrong with the milk and the milk supply and my body. And that must be it.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Women, we'd have this deep, deep distrust of our body's ability to take care of our baby. And I think, like, I always bring this up, but we live in this culture that doesn't value women and our ability to take care of and nourish babies with our bodies. And I think it just becomes, this is how we end up thinking of ourselves.
Yeah.
It's so doubtful and distrustful, and
people plant that seed so easily. Like words that come out of our mouth. We talk about, for kids, and I don't know, if anybody listening, my kids are, like I said, teenagers. So there's so much focus on bullying now. And bullying in the schools, and watch what you say, and bullying on social media. And then you have these moms that somebody, whether it be their partner, their doctor, their mother, their neighbor, somebody has said to them, well, you know what? Sometimes people just don't make enough milk, and that's okay. And they say it so easily, like not realizing how much that can crush a new mother to think that now she cannot provide for her baby.
Yeah. Right.
And it's so damaging to your psyche. It's so damaging to your self-esteem and your confidence level as a mother.
Right. And that does not, I think they're trying to make you feel better. They're trying to say like, oh, it's okay. And it's not okay. And it doesn't make you feel better. It makes you feel totally crappy about not being able to take care of your baby. But people don't, they're just like, oh, it's okay. Oh, and the other thing, you can just give them formula. Just supplement with formula. Okay. That's like the worst thing you can do if you think you have milk supply issues is like introduce formula. Because then now you really will have supply issues.
You will. And the baby's not going to feed well at the breast because they're full from the formula. So they're going to take less and less from the breast. And now you really got a milk supply problem. Mm-hmm. So it is just a cycle that will get worse. The best thing to do is to talk to somebody, whether it be you get on a Facebook group or some sort of social media or some sort of breastfeeding support or mom support or anything like that.
Call a lactation consultant.
Call a lactation consultant. Talk to anybody. Get on Abby's blog. Anything, and just say, this is happening. What is it? What's going on? What should I do? Should I automatically supplement? Should I just? And it's not like, okay, my milk is gone, I should just supplement. We really should find out what's going on. Because you know what? Yeah. You just all of a sudden, if this is an issue that is, because more often than not, see, I'm getting all worked up. I can't even work my sentences. If more often than not, a mom thinks she has a milk supply problem, it's a problem with how the baby is feeding. Mm-hmm. So often it is not a milk supply problem. And nobody wants to say, okay, there's something wrong with my baby. And these babies are perfect. They're perfect, but they don't necessarily come into the world in a perfect way. So sometimes it is hard for them to figure out how to get this milk out. We just need to work with them and help them figure out how to get the milk out. And it's not a milk supply issue, but just to start supplementing and just assume, okay, it's me, I'm just going to supplement. Your baby's still going to have that issue. That issue's not going away.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah. And that's such a good point, is like, no matter, you're going to have to help, your body is going to do all these magical things, but you will have to help. You're going to have to help your newborn. You're going to have to help them figure out how to latch onto your breast. You're going to have to figure out, help them, get the milk out of your breast. Yeah. And that was the big thing with Exley, was he wasn't gaining enough weight. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And, I had a lactation consultant who was like, help him with his latch, try some breast compressions to kind of help him, get it out. And like, it was fine. Within a week, the problem was completely resolved.
Yeah.
But he gained like double what he was supposed to gain.
You don't think about those things. You think that this baby's born, and because everybody says, oh, breastfeeding, it's so natural and instinctive.
Ugh.
Yes and no. Really. Yes and no. We need to figure it out. It's very instinctive for them to do it. It's what they know how to do instinctively. But we don't birth babies naturally in our society anymore.
Right.
So to just assume that this baby is now going to be able to latch and feed when they've been exposed to Lord knows what during an induction, is asking a lot of these little babies. They need help. They do. They need help. And moms also need to be taught latch and breast compressions and how to help the baby, because the baby does need help. They can't support the weight of the breast. They can't support a crappy latch or a crappy position. Right. They need really to have that help. They really do.
Yeah. And I mean, Exley was born naturally in my house and he needed help.
Yeah.
He's a baby with a mouth. He doesn't know what to do with it.
Right. They don't know how to suck.
Like he knows. Right. He knows how to get to instinctively he did the breast crawl. He knew what to do. But I mean, he still needs help with his tiny little mouth with no muscles yet. Like how to get it in there and how to,
It's, and I tell people all the time, babies, they're in the womb. They're spending 9 months curled up in the womb. They're getting everything through the placenta. They don't have to do anything. And then they come out and they have to figure out how to suck, swallow, and breathe and coordinate all of that. In order to get a feeding, and if they don't do it right the first time, we're like, okay, you're getting a bottle. Like, how fair is that?
Yeah, you suck at breastfeeding.
You suck.
Yeah, you can't have any more.
So I guess that kid will always have training wheels and will have to be carried forever because they're not going to learn how to walk or tie a shoe. So come on, like babies need to figure it out. They need to figure it out. It has nothing to do with milk supply. It is very, very scary when, as you said, a doctor says to you, your baby's not gaining.
Yeah.
We automatically go to, it's something I'm doing wrong. It must be my fault. I must not be feeding right. Like, we automatically go to that place. But we really need to look at everything and go, all right, what is the problem? What is the problem? Is it truly a milk supply issue? And if it is, why? Why is it a milk supply issue? Because milk supply issues are not that common. And they usually can be traced right back to, is it a hormonal issue? Is it a breast surgery? What is causing this milk supply problem?
Yeah, that's what I do. And I'm not a lactation consultant, so I try not to give people, advice like that. But people say, I'm not making enough milk. And I'll say, how do you know?
Yeah. How do you know?
How do you know you're not making enough milk? And usually they can't answer the question. Well, then it's like, oh, my breast doesn't feel full. My baby's, fussy at my breast, or he's not gaining, he's not gaining enough weight. That's another thing. Your baby is you're making enough milk.
Yeah.
That's not a milk supply issue.
Or the baby's not sleeping all night. Or, my friend's baby goes 3 hours in between and wonders why my baby is only going an hour and a half.
Right.
The other amazing thing, there's so much to lactation that people don't appreciate. There's so much to it. And women's breasts hold different capacities of milk, so you might have a woman with huge breasts and you think, oh my God. And people, of course, our society goes, oh, you have small breasts, you're not going to make enough milk. I still hear that.
Right. Yeah.
And people think, oh, you have big breasts, you're going to make a ton of milk. Not necessarily. There could be a lot of fatty tissue in that big breast. That might not be that, and the mom will make enough milk, but her breast the capacity to hold all that milk might be smaller.
Yeah, there's no correlation between the size of your breast and the amount of milk that you're making. None.
Absolutely none. None at all. So every situation is very, very different. I have come across recently, in the last few years, moms that are not making enough milk, like legitimately not making enough milk. And when you trace back everything, it really goes back to how the baby was born and the fact that the baby was not stimulating well in those first 2 weeks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, and a lot of times that's a very traumatic, it was an induction that led to a C-section. The baby was separated from the mom because of blood sugar or body temp, whatever, infection. They weren't stimulating, mom's pumping for, instead of feeding because the baby's not latching. That kind of stuff will absolutely interfere with how much you're able to make. Mm-hmm. Not always, but it can.
And the solution to that is not to supplement with formula.
No, it's education.
Like you can, and you can, if you are in that, truly are in that situation where you're not making enough milk, you can make more.
You can, absolutely.
Lactation consultant can help you do that.
And it's not an all or nothing thing. It's a lot of this is education and knowing what do I need to do and getting the help for that. And it's overwhelming. And sometimes, in the hospital, they don't have all that time to spend with you. Pediatricians' offices, they don't have the time to spend with you. They might say, like you were saying, you feed, you pump, those early days where babies aren't gaining well, you feed, you pump, you're supplementing, you barely close your eyes for 20 minutes and then you're up doing it all over again. It's exhausting. Yeah. It's exhausting. And I think if moms know, okay, there's an end to that. That's not going to be forever. We have to, it's manageable. Utilizing friends and support, having them help you is a big deal.
Yeah. And don't get up every 2 hours with I remember doing this like mania thing with my first. It was like, we're getting up out of bed. He's sleeping right here in this bassinet here. Like everybody's got to get up. We got to sit up. We got to breastfeed, then we got to, because we were supplementing with formula with my first, and then we got to like shuffle him over here and get his diaper changed, and no wonder he can't sleep. Nobody can sleep. No, with my second, I was like, we're gonna lay in this bed together all night. I'm not changing your diaper. They're babies. They have tiny little peas anyway. Seriously, they're fine. Yeah. And we're just going to lay here and as long as we possibly can because we're both tired and you can just sit here and stay latched onto my boob all night and just do what you got to do.
How
I think there's so much and there's right. And there's so much like fear around what you're supposed to be doing that people are making it a lot harder than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And it's not their fault because we all have these cultural like things that make us afraid of sharing a bed with our baby or afraid of, laying down to breastfeed or these things that were, oh my God, you can't do that. Your baby's going to get hurt.
I had a mom one time who it was some kind of muscle thing. I want to say multiple sclerosis, but I don't think that was it. But she had this newborn and we had a really hard time being able to position her baby in her arms because her arms just did not have that kind of strength. So she would lay down and nurse her baby and everything was great. She was comfortable, baby's gaining, it's great. She told her pediatrician that's what she was doing and they were like, that's an advanced hold. You shouldn't be doing that.
An advanced hold? What the hell is that? I've never heard that term before. Wow.
That's how she solved her problem of breastfeeding her baby with a physical issue. And she was told that she shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, my God.
if you look at the different,
they're just making up that.
Just making up stuff.
That's made up, by the way.
Yeah, that's made up.
By the way, badasses, that is made up.
Yes. So if you look at other societies, which a lot of people don't do, but have you ever watched the movie Babies?
No, I've heard that's a really good. It's
good.
Like a documentary thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's going back a few years now, but I used to show it when I worked. I worked for an inner city pregnancy program in Rochester here in the city, and had a lot of young moms and teen moms and, single moms. And I would show that because it was very powerful, and it's engaging. It is a documentary. There's no talking even, and it goes on for like an hour or two, but it follows babies from 4 different cultures, Africa, Mongolia, I think, Japan, and United States. I think that's it. I could be making it up, but I'm pretty sure those are them. And it's amazing how different the cultures are and how they react to their children. And you see these African cultures where the babies are being worn all the time. They're just nursing when they feel like it because they're on the mom, and the mom is just like whatever. And they're, raised in these communities where there's all these people around helping, the aunt and the mom and the friend and everybody. These kids are growing up together. Nobody's isolated. And these are the kids that were walking first and communicating with each other. And, it was just amazing to see the differences in these babies at the same stage of life. And I used to always say that, to my moms, like, which babies seem more well-rounded and more, and they were like, well, those little babies in that little African village. I'm like, yeah, those moms were just breastfeed all the time. There was no like, okay, you have to wait 3 hours, or you just fed, you can't feed now, or the baby must be not getting enough because, there was none of that. There was none of that.
And they have so much connection to like older generations that have breastfed and have, done this, and they're not constantly interrupted by, the doctor coming into your room and telling you all of this misinformation. Like we're in this like modern first world country, and, obviously there's a lot of great things about living here, but we're so distant from, that natural state of living, or this, this instinctive way of living where the elders are have done it and are watching you and are teaching you how to do it, and they just know from experience.
It's very
not coming from, a school, a classroom, that kind of thing.
It's so disconnected, and breastfeeding is really, it's like an art form, this old art form that got lost.
Yeah.
It just got lost somewhere along the way and was replaced. And now that people are trying to make it happen again, we're making up all these rules.
Yeah.
That don't need to go with it.
Yeah, there are a lot of, that's true. There's like all we're making up rules because we don't know. There's such a disconnect. We forgot. Like we forgot what to do, and we don't have it connected instinctively anymore. And so we're kind of like, now we're like, well, let's make a rule book. Let's all just make up some rules, and then
yeah.
And they're all wrong. Most of the rules are wrong.
And they're like not based. The milk supply rule we're going to put in the book with the positions, with the laying down position being wrong. That'll go in that book. And then also in that book is going to be weight gain, and how babies should gain a certain amount by a certain time, or else they're not breastfeeding well.
Or they're not thriving. Yeah.
They're not thriving. They have to be at a certain percentile, or they're not thriving. And I tell moms, because moms get obsessed with the percentiles.
Yes.
I'm like, you can have a baby in the 80th percentile, does not mean they're healthy.
Right.
Those percentiles don't tell us anything. Like, I don't even know why that's out there. But people get obsessed with it. My baby should be in this percentile.
It's
My
just
baby
like,
dropped this many percentiles.
Right. It's just this way of measuring. We're obsessed with a way of measuring things, but it's completely inaccurate.
Obsessed with the measuring. And I try to explain that to parents when they say, like, how much is my baby getting? How much? I had this one time, like putting it trying to really, I give him so much credit because he really was trying to be logical about this. And he was like really, well, every 3 hours she's able to pump this many ounces, which means that if the baby feeds at this time, that they should be getting about this much. And I'm like, no, like it doesn't work like that. And he goes, well, what do you mean it doesn't work? Like really had a hard time wrapping his brain around the fact that it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. We can't measure it like that. There is no way to measure. And in our society where we measure everything and we time everything and we look at everything very, very critically, then you're given this baby and we're like, what do we do? There's no way to measure this. How do I go on with my life? What happens?
You're right.
Next?
How do I just breastfeed on demand and just trust your body? And like we say all these things and it's so hard. It's so hard to do it. It's not what we normally do. We don't just trust your body. Trust your body and your baby.
Trust your body and your baby. And then you have people.
It's true, but it's so hard. It's like you can't just be like, it's hard to put your whole cultural way of thinking out of your head.
I know. And it's so simple. So simple.
Yeah.
So take home message on this is milk supply is not a common problem with mothers. It is not. It is not a common problem with mothers. If you feel like you're having a milk supply issue, tell them what to do, Abby.
Call a lactation consultant.
Call a lactation consultant. Call somebody. Talk with somebody about this. Work it out. Break it down. Figure out what's going on. It does not mean the end of your breastfeeding relationship at all.
Right. And and know that your saggy, floppy breast...
Which also gets blamed on breastfeeding.
It might what?
It also gets blamed on breastfeeding.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like your saggy breasts and you're not gaining weight baby and your fussy baby at the breast. These are not milks. These are not things that point to milk supply.
It does not.
These are issues that can be resolved. You've got enough milk. You just got to get it in your baby's belly.
Yeah. And that sometimes is where we need to get the help. So
right.
Find help, get the help. And we will help you, lead you in that direction if we need to.
Yes, we can help you too. If you need a lactation consultant, email thebadassbreastfeeder@gmail.com and I will connect you to a lactation consultant in your area.
Get it.
And obviously Dianne is a lactation consultant, so she can help you too.
I will. And get into the badass community. You know you want to be there. So it's there for everybody.
Yep.
And we are coming to our end of episode 6. So leave us a review. Love us if you love us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.